Alright everyone, welcome back to another Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes video with Fat Phil, and I'm excited to kind of present this video to you. It's something that I've kind of had working in the background for a little bit, and it's what if Galaxy of Heroes had FIFA cards. So I'm going to be presenting you guys with 3 characters today. They're very popular characters, and just what my rankings are for them. Now, I want to just give a couple of things here. Word of warning, I am not very good at digital editing, and so I hope you guys can appreciate that with the little bit that I know how to do, which isn't much. I did try and make these things as pretty as I possibly could. But I hope you guys enjoy this because it's my take on, hey, these are, good characters. I thought I could kind of, instead of just showing you in a squad, and kind of create a little card and explain the different stats and what I'm, these stats, right? Like how they perform in different game modes and what goes into that. So hopefully you guys enjoy this video and find it fun. And if you do, let me know in the comments. Otherwise, let me know in the comments, Phil, this is terrible. Don't ever do this again. You absolutely suck at, digital editing. So before we do that, let's give a huge shout out to my channel members. Thank you guys so much for your continued support. If you're interested in joining channel memberships, there's a link in the video description down below. Otherwise, I really would appreciate it if you subscribe to this channel, like this video, and leave your comments, even if it's just like, Phil, please don't do this again. Let me know what you guys want from me. I am here to serve the people. I'm here to serve you. So I, again, really appreciate all you guys. Let's get into this and let's talk about these FIFA cards. So the first one that we're magically going to pop up here is Darth Traya. So we've got our girl Traya here. Now with Darth Traya, right, I've got a couple of things here. So we have an overall rating of 82. She's a support character. She does have 2 Zetas, right? There are 2 Zetas. Her lead and a unique, but 2 Zetas, and she does have an Omicron for GAC, as you can tell by her GAC stats. So on the left side here of this card, I have offense, defense, and GAC. So offense is pretty obvious. How does she do on offense? This is primarily rated towards GAC on this left-hand side. So offensively, I'm going to give her a 90. Defensively, 85. You're going to notice with a lot of characters, if we continue doing this, that a lot of characters, they're going to have a worse defensive rating than offensive rating, because a lot of times the AI is not nearly as good as the player. There will be some cases where I think some characters have a much better defensive performance than offensive, and a lot of that simply comes down to, how the AI plays them and also what mechanics are involved. So the GAC ranking then is kind of encompassing her GAC performance as a whole. So it's not going to be a combination of your offensive and defensive ratings. Instead, it's going to say, hey, if you use her this way or use her this way, you can do a lot better. So you're thinking, you throw in some Savage, some Talon, she's going to get really, really good. Then on the right-hand side, we're looking at Territory Wars down at the bottom, which again, that's kind of a combination of offensive, defensive, right? And then Conquest is a separate category, right? I am rating characters separately in Conquest. And then PvE is going to kind of encompass everything else, like your assault battles, galactic challenges, and territory battles. So just trying to capture all the different game modes. So now that I've described kind of what goes into these, so Traya has a 90 on offense, and that should be pretty self-explanatory. Offensively, this character can do so much. It is an unbelievably good team on offense, especially with that Omicron equipped. She can punch all the way up to Reva. Obviously you got to put a good team with her. You can't just like throw Traya in there by herself. But even on defense, this can really cause a lot of problems for players. Where she loses a bit in the defensive category is there are certain teams that you would probably beat with her on offense that can probably handle her on defense. The other thing I kind of weighted there is it's something on defense that you can pick this team apart pretty well. That is one thing that, like, if you think about it and you go in and you annihilate Traya, right, that team just kind of falls apart. That is the one thing on defense that you're vulnerable with, is that Traya is kind of the linchpin to the team. This isn't a situation where, if you kill, and you think with the characters that I chose, you guys would see why that is. But I just feel defensively she doesn't quite have as good of a performance as she does on offense, because I think she's a Swiss Army knife. There's almost nothing in this game that she can't beat on offense. Where defense, I think there are some things that can be exploited. And to really get a good defensive performance out of her, that's kind of where this 90 comes from, where you've got to start putting in the Savages and the Talons. And if you're not willing to do that, this defensive rating drops while she can still maintain a really good offensive rating. Conquest-wise, she gets an 80, which is a pretty decent score. Where she loses out a little bit is just she's an older character, so that Omicron and GAC kind of gets her to what the current state of the game is, but her base stats aren't the greatest. She is a support character. She's not an attacker, so that does really help her in terms of that feat of like when with no attackers or no tanks, she can be a part of those teams. She has some okay mechanics. There are some teams that I think really just cause problems for her, but overall, pretty decent conquest. In PvE, she does lose out a little bit. I would also say that Traya this is including her Proving Ground score, which is kind of helping that conquest a bit. Now in PvE, she drops. In territory battles, she's okay, but I think kind of that lack of health pool really can hurt her. And the other side of this, I would say, is that her squad is very dependent in PvE on just health recovery. And if you're missing protection on her, right, if you're not getting that protection back like you are in GAC in some instances, especially with Savage Press, that can be a big problem for the Sith. Territory Wars, she just misses out a little bit. It really just comes down to what her biggest counter was Geonosians, and with the Poggle Omicron there, it definitely threw a wrench in Traya and her viability. Not that there's still not some things she can counter, but I find myself not able to use her nearly as much in Territory Wars as I am GAC with that Omicron. Now again, I'm at a much higher level, but I think in Territory Wars she just isn't really performing as well as she can in GAC because that Omicron. And if she didn't have this Omicron, you'd probably see you'd see a much lower score for her because, her GAC performance is just so friggin' good. So that is Darth Traya. So next, we're going to go to Bossk. So Bossk has an 83. Now, he is a tank. One thing we're going to note here with Bossk, this is not including the Houndstooth. This is separating the pilot, which normally I don't do. Normally I try to say, hey, you got to, but the reason I excluded him as a pilot here is because I want to just rate the character, right? This is just the character. If I was going to rate the Houndstooth, I'd make a Houndstooth card. So for Bossk, offensively, he actually has a lower rating than defensively. And I think that's because a lot of people underestimate this team on defense. I really, really like Bossk on defense. A lot of times he can do some amazing things. Offensively, where I think he struggles is you need a very specific team on offense to really do something because of the way his payout works, where you need to damage the weakest enemy. Where he gets this really good GAC rating from is you can put him with like an Aura Singh lead or a Fennec lead and get some amazing, counters out of that, right? That you think you put him with Fennec and you got a really good Lord Vader counter. So I really like Bossk. It's definitely something that I think in GAC, the Zam Omicron, if you put that with him, he definitely bumps up to a level that otherwise he wouldn't be at. Now you notice that his stats are a lot closer together because he's just like a solid character. I kind of you could view Bossk almost like a Ford F-150, that he's a solid character, but you know what you're getting with him, right? He's solid in everything, but he's not going to be the top of anything, excluding the Houndstooth, right? Conquest is an 84, I think is a great rating. Again, he's not a Jedi, Sith, or unaligned Force user, so he can help you with those tags. The other thing I really like with Bossk in terms of Conquest is that his leadership with the extra survivability can be so important, especially in some of those later phases of Conquest where you just need to hang around and survive. So I do really rate Bossk well in Conquest. Now PvE, he does jump up a bit, and I think for me, it's because of some of those events where you do need scoundrels or bounty hunters, but also because Bossk Bounty Hunters will get you to challenge tier 2 of that bounty hunter event. And also, I think I really rely on Bossk for if you're trying to like farm contracts. I kind of put that in here too. So that PvE kind of saying like in a lot of these game modes, really good. And in territory battles, I think you can get a lot more use out of him, particularly now that there is the mixed zone. I think Bosk's worth just jumped up with Rise of the Empire. Territory Wars drops down to an 81. I still think a very solid character. There are some Omicrons you can throw with him to maybe get him a little bit better, but I think 81 is a very solid score for him. I think it kind of matches what he can do in GAC without Omicrons, because most people are not going to throw the Embo Omicron inside of your Bossk team. So this was kind of just Gave him an overall rating of an 83. Again, he's got 2 Zetas. I think it's a solid score. These are all characters that I think are very good and deserving of their ratings. And for those of you thinking like, Phil, if you've never played FIFA or Madden before, what you have to understand is that getting, an 80, getting into the 80s a lot of times is a solid character. So, you're not going to see, you think like just for example, like if I go back to Traya for a second here, giving her 90s is crazy. Like if you play FIFA, getting a 90 rating is really good. So I do want to take that in consideration that, those are good. These are very good characters, good cards. But you got to think that to have a 99 on offense, how many characters in this game actually have a 99 on offense? I can think of like 2. So anyway, we're going to keep moving on here to the final one I did for today, and that is Commander Luke Skywalker. He's an 84. He is an attacker and has 3 Zetas. Now, this is a little bit of bias maybe because I love Commander Luke Skywalker. He's one of my all-time favorite characters. Now, his GAC ratings offensively definitely higher than defense. I think offensively he brings to the table a little bit more stuff, and there's a few counters that you can use him for that can be pretty consistent used against him on defense, like General Skywalker and Starkiller can really cause him problems if he's on defense, that they will beat him. And the other thing too I find with offense is just you can control the AI a little bit more and target certain key individuals that the AI might not do for you. Now, overall GAC ranking is an 86. He jumps up quite a bit there. When you put him with the right characters, it's just a phenomenal thing. And with the offensive rating of 85, there's a little key feature here that I don't know if I've ever shared this, but one of the biggest things you can use Master Luke, or Commander Luke for, sorry, Commander Luke, Master Luke, Commander Luke here, you can use him to clean up a Rey that's below 50% health. Now, that's assuming there's no Ben Solo, but if Rey's below 50% health and you bring in your Commander Luke squadron, right, and this is assuming you're with that best team, right, you bring Commander Luke with them, and you can kill Rey. I've done it so many times in Territory Wars where you can just blitz her down because she's not going to be able to take a turn because of your turn meter gains and all this other stuff. So I really love this character in GAC. I think he's fantastic. Where he loses out in Territory Wars, in my personal opinion, is the Juhani Omicron. I think that Omicron is very good, and it's very good, and it stops him from being able to beat Starkiller teams, which he can do pretty consistently in GAC depending on the lineup. So it is the one thing in Territory Wars that he loses out a little bit is that Juhani team really shuts him down. Couple other things in Territory Wars that kind of can cause him some issues depending on where he is. I do really like him to counter Captain Phasma squads, but again, I just find in GAC a little bit he has a bit more punch up, a bit more weight behind him than he does Territory Wars, simply because of how the game kind of shakes out and what the popular metas are. Now, PvE is an 84. He is the team you use for Challenge Tier 3 of the Empire Assault Battle, where you face off against them. I think for Galactic Challenges, he's always great. The only time you really suffer here is when you need, like Rebel Fighters, because he's not a Rebel Fighter. Now, in Conquest in 91, which is really, I love that in Conquest, this character is just phenomenal. I mean, yes, he's a light side on the line Force user, but he's an attacker, right? His team, there's no tanks in it, which can be really good. The big thing here is just all the utility and the survivability on this team that you can really, really just kind of go through Conquest all at once. And again, assuming he's in his proper team. This is the one thing I tried to do with these cards that maybe I should explain a little bit more, but this is assuming that you are using the proper team with them. If you're just going to try and, there we go. That works. I should have done that from the start. But, you can see here that, if you're not going to use them with the proper teams, their ratings are just going to plummet, right? But if you use them with the right teams, I think that they're pretty solid. And I gave the same GAC rating to both Bossk and Commander Luke, and I think that's a very reasonable thing to do, because while Bossk, you could say, can be in a squad that will beat Lord Vader, realistically, it's Bossk just kind of tagging along for the ride. Whereas with Commander Luke, there's some teams that Bossk simply would not be able to touch without help that Luke really, without the other Omicrons, where Luke's team is not required for Omicrons. otherwise, guys, that's kind of, hopefully you enjoy these, this video a little bit and can appreciate the work that did go into these. I'm not saying that I did anything crazy here, but that, I went out on a limb a little bit to create these. So you guys let me know what your thoughts are. I'd love to hear what your thoughts on those FIFA cards, if I should do more of them, or if you're like, Phil, never do them again. I just thought it'd be a lot more fun than like creating, squads and ranking them and whatever. So, I really think that those are 3 very popular characters that people will like and enjoy. So you guys let me know as always. I love all you. May the force be with you, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Cheers.